On the morning of June 29, 1995, the ceiling of a South Korean department store was visibly coming apart. Cracks ran across the 5th floor wide enough to put a finger into. The people who owned the building called in engineers, and the engineers used the words "at risk of collapse." Then management made a decision. They closed the top floor. They left the rest of the store open. 40,000 people shopped there on an average day, and the store took over $500,000 a day. And that Thursday was busier than usual, so closing meant losing all of it. So the doors stayed open and the lights stayed on. And for the rest of the day, shoppers browsed under a slab that had already been written off. At 5:52 that evening, the roof let go. The building went into its own basement in under 20 seconds. 502 people died. And here's the part that's hard to sit with. Every single thing that killed them had already been noticed by someone who could have stopped it. The store opened in 1990 in one of the wealthiest districts of the South Korean capital. 2 wings, north and south, joined by an atrium, 5 floors above ground, and a basement underneath. It was a hit. About 40,000 people came through the doors on an average day, and it took over $500,000 a day doing it. For 5 years, it was one of the most profitable addresses in the city. None of that is strange. Big stores in big cities do big numbers. What was strange was everything underneath the tiles. The ground had been a landfill. The building standing on it had been designed as something else entirely, then redrawn while it was going up by a man who fired anyone who argued with him, and for 5 years it held. That's the cruel thing about a structure that carries more than it should. It doesn't fail on the day you overload it. It waits. It keeps taking your money. Then it fails on a busy afternoon 5 years later. Construction started in 1987. The plan on file was a residential apartment building of 4 floors, put up by an established construction firm. Partway through, the chairman of the group that owned the land changed his mind. He didn't want apartments. He wanted a department store. That is not a paperwork change. A shop floor needs open space and escalators need holes cut down through the middle of a building. Cutting those holes meant cutting away support columns that were already carrying load. The contractor refused. Builders don't often walk away from a paid job, and when they do, it's worth asking why. The chairman fired them and brought in his own construction company to finish it his way. Then he added a floor. The approved drawings said 4. The building went up with 5. District officials signed it off anyway. Years later, 2 of them went to prison for taking bribes to look the other way. The building was illegal before a single customer walked in. To understand what happened at 552, you have to understand what this building didn't have. There was no steel skeleton. There were no beams. The floors were flat concrete slabs resting directly on top of concrete columns, like plates balanced on the ends of poles. That's a real system and a legal one. It's cheap, it's fast, and it leaves you a clean ceiling with nothing hanging in the way. It has exactly one weakness, and it is this. Everything a floor is carrying has to funnel down through the small ring of concrete where the slab meets the column. Get that ring wrong and the column doesn't crush. It punches. It drives straight up through the floor it was holding, like a broom handle through a paper plate. Now the numbers. The drawings called for columns 31 inches thick. They were poured at 24. The drawings called for 16 steel bars inside each column. They got 8, and the columns stood 36 feet apart, so every one of them carried more. The 5th floor was supposed to be a roller skating rink. Open space, light load, easy. Instead, it became a floor of restaurants. Korean restaurants of that era were heated from underneath, with the heat running through the floor itself. Building that meant pouring a concrete base 4 feet thick across the entire level. 4 feet of concrete on a floor drawn up for people on roller skates. There's worse. The columns on that top floor didn't line up with the columns below them. Load is only simple when it can travel straight down. When a column above sits over open slab instead of over the column beneath it, the floor has to carry that weight sideways first before it can hand it off. So the heaviest floor in the building sat on the most confused set of columns in the building. Nobody recalculated any of it. There was no engineering analysis on file because the man who ordered the changes had already fired the people who did analysis. Then there was the roof. 3 air conditioning units sat up there, empty. Each one weighed about 15 tons. Together, roughly 45 tons of machinery. The roof had been designed to carry something in the region of 11 tons. Investigators later measured those roof slabs at about 1/4 of the strength they needed. The units were in the wrong spot from the beginning, and in 1993 the neighbors complained about the noise. So the store moved them. Not with a crane, they dragged them. 45 tons of machinery hauled across a concrete roof that was already overloaded, gouging it as it went. They came to rest above one particular column near the middle of the south wing. Cracks opened in the slab around it right away. Then the units were switched back on, and every day after that, they sat there and vibrated, and the cracks grew. Over 2 years, that column worked itself loose from the floor it was holding up. Nobody was watching. It's a roof. In April of 1995, cracks appeared in the ceiling of the 5th floor, in the south wing. Management understood the problem well enough to act on it. Their action was to move merchandise and shops from the top floor down to the basement. Read that again. They didn't ask why the ceiling was cracking. They moved the stock away from the part that was cracking. 2 months later, on the morning of June 29, the cracks were spreading fast enough to see it happening. Parts of the top floor were closed. By lunchtime, the cracks had widened again, and the ceiling on the 4th floor was sagging, so more of the upper building was shut. Civil engineering experts were brought in that day. It didn't take them long, and it didn't take a full survey. They looked at what the building was doing and told management it was at risk of collapse. That was the last exit. Everything after this point is a choice. So the executives met that afternoon, inside a building they had just been told might fall down. The store was unusually busy. Shutting the doors meant giving up the revenue on one of the better days of the year. It also meant questions, and an inspection would find everything. They decided to stay open. About 5 hours before the end, the first loud bang came down from the top floors. Then another. The vibration from the air conditioning was working the cracks open, and the slab was announcing it. Customers complained about the noise, so the units were switched off. That is the entire story of this building in one gesture. A structural warning arrives, and the response is to silence the thing making the sound. Then the chairman and the executives left the building. They did not clear the floors on their way out. Below them, more than 1,000 people were still shopping, still working the registers, still eating dinner on the 5th floor. Staff finally sounded the alarm at about 5:50. 2 minutes later, the roof gave way. The air conditioning units dropped through it and landed on the 5th floor, the heaviest floor in the building, the one carrying 4 feet of concrete. That floor failed. Then the main columns went, and every remaining column in the south wing followed them. The whole south wing dropped into its own basement. It took less than 20 seconds, not a lean, not a slow sag. 5 floors of concrete simply stopped being a building and arrived at the bottom as a pile. 502 people were killed. 937 were injured. 6 were never found at all. It is still the deadliest peacetime disaster in South Korean history. And the people who died were doing the most ordinary thing there is, buying something, on a Thursday, in a shop that had been open for 5 years. That same morning, an engineer had said the word collapse out loud in that building to the people who ran it. The rescue was a mess. There was no single command running it for the first 5 days, and crews worked around each other in the dark. They kept finding people alive. One clerk was cut out of a gap barely 19 inches wide after 12 days under the concrete. The last survivor, a store clerk, came out after 17 days, badly dehydrated, and lived. That December, the chairman was convicted of criminal negligence and sentenced to 10 years and 6 months. On appeal, it came down to 7 years and 6 months. His son got 7 years. 2 district officials went to prison for the bribes. Afterwards, the city inspected its own buildings. In one sample of 50, exactly 1 was found safe. 4 out of every 5 needed major repair. The site sat empty for years. There's a luxury apartment complex on it now, and a marble memorial in a city park. The cracks were visible from the shop floor. Everyone could see them. The only question that ever mattered was who was willing to close the doors.